What you gonna do, brother, when Jeff Townsend Media runs wild on you?
Have you been searching for a podcast? Do you want to learn from some great content creators? Well, you've come to the right place. Indie Podcaster with your host, Jeff Townsend, the Indie Podcast Father.
All right. This is Jeff Townsend. Thank you for checking out another episode of Indie Podcaster. This podcast is made for podcasters and other content creators. Certainly don't consider myself a guru, nor either do any of my friends that will be featured in these episodes. But what we do like to do is talk content creation, pick each other's brains, and have a good time. I'm proud to mention that this podcast is sponsored by Indie Drop-In. Now, let me tell you something about Indie Drop-In. This is an awesome network that my friend Greg has created. What he does is drop episodes from independent content creators into his established podcast audience on his feed, and he shares your episodes to an audience that already exists. Yes, it's like free advertisement and promotion for your podcast. He spent a lot of time, money, and effort building it, and he already has an audience interested in the content, and he can certainly help you by sharing your content. It's great promotion. Go to indiedropin.com/creators and check it out. If you're a comedy, true crime, paranormal, or various other different kinds of podcasts, you can benefit from this. So I really encourage you, once again, go to indiedropin.com/creators and see if you can get your stuff featured on Indie Drop-In. We'll go back to the podcast here, Indie Podcaster. So what we've currently been doing is sharing content from 3 different projects that I'm involved in. The first is Good Morning Podcasters with my good friend Fuzz Martin. We also do some content on Podcasting Sucks. And then in these episodes, you will also hear some content from Podcasting Power Hour. Podcasting Power Hour is a live thing we do on Twitter Spaces. We get a whole bunch of great podcast minds together and we talk podcasting. So if you're a content creator, a podcaster, I think you'll take something away from every episode of the content I'm going to share with you. With that being said, make sure you check out Indie Drop-In and make sure you enjoy this episode. I think it's important that we all continue to learn and grow every day, and that will help us become even better content creators. That's certainly what I try to do, learn something new every day. I'm excited to share this content with you. I think it'll be a learning experience for you. Let's get to this episode, and I hope you have a great time listening to it.
Good morning, podcasters. Have you updated your Google Analytics to GA4 yet? Hi, friends. I'm Fuzz Martin, and this is Good Morning Podcasters, a show that will help guide you through some of the things that you need to do as a podcaster to grow your show through marketing, public relations, advertising, and social media. Today, we're talking about tracking your website traffic and website conversions with Google Analytics. I'm guessing that most of you have Google Analytics on your website. If you don't, you should. In October of 2020, Google announced that it would be doing away with the previous version of Google Analytics, commonly known as Universal Analytics, or UA, and they introduced the all-new GA4. So what is GA4? Well, Google Analytics 4, GA4, is the latest version of Google Analytics, which offers a number of new features and improvements over the old version, Universal Analytics, UA, which I'll refer to it as for the rest of the show. So here are some of the benefits of using the new GA4. One, they have enhanced data privacy. So GA4 provides more granular controls for collecting data and storage, which can help you better protect the privacy of your users and help you remain compliant with some of the laws that are in effect now. 2, it improves cross-device tracking. So GA4 uses machine learning, can better understand how your users interact with your website across different devices. It allows you to get a more complete picture of your website visitors' behavior. It also offers enhanced event tracking, so conversions and things like that on your website. GA4 allows you to create custom events that you can define yourself. This will help you get a better understanding of how your website visitors are interacting with your site and what actions they're taking. It offers improved integration with other Google products. So GA4 is integrated with other Google offerings, which can make it easier to analyze and optimize your marketing efforts. And overall, GA4 can help you get a better, more accurate and comprehensive understanding of your website's performance and what your users are doing when they're on your site, which can help you make better decisions about your marketing and your website development efforts. Also, it's a good idea because GA4 is getting rid of Universal Analytics. And so if you're still using UA, you're going to be up Analytics Creek without a paddle here pretty soon. So how do you get the new GA4 onto your website? Well, to upgrade to GA4, you're going to need to create a GA4 property inside your Google Analytics account and then install the new tracking code onto your website. Here's kind of a quick overview on how you do that. So first you sign into Google Analytics, click on the admin button that is in the, I believe, bottom left corner of Google Analytics. Then you go to the property column and you click create property. And then you choose web as the platform and click continue. Then you're going to enter your website's name, your URL. You're going to select GA4 as the data stream type and click create stream. From there, you follow the prompts to set up your GA4 property. You're going to need to agree to their terms of service, select a data sharing setting, but you can just follow all those steps right there. And then once your GA4 property is set up, you'll need to install the new tracking code onto your website. You can do that by clicking on the tracking info tab in the property settings and then select tracking code. You follow the instructions and then you install the tracking code onto your website. It's a good idea to test the tracking code, make sure it's working. So just go to the real-time tab in GA4 and you go to your website. You will see one user on there. One thing you have to keep in mind is that GA4 will not take your existing data from your old UA account and put it into GA4. So if you want to keep track of your old historical data, you're going to need to keep Universal Analytics on your site for now, but you're also going to want to archive it and download a copy because, well, Google's getting rid of that. Here are some important dates for you. One, they plan on stopping collecting data on the old UA Analytics on July 1st of 2023. And two, they plan on deleting your old UA data on January 1st of 2024. So you've got a pretty short window and you should get GA4 installed, tested, up and running, all of your conversions and all those things set up. Well, I would just say as soon as possible. Of course, if I know Google, they will likely give you some grace on the dates. But as of right now, the dates are the dates and you don't want to tempt fate, right? Especially at the hands of the Google gods. So get your GA4 installed, archive your old UA, and then once the old UA goes away, you can delete that code off your website. Thanks for listening to Good Morning Podcasters. Please do me a favor. Follow the show and give me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Pretty simple. You know how it works. You're a podcaster. This is what we do. I do the same for you. In fact, I will. If you just reach out and talk to me, I'll listen to your show and I will rate and follow. All right? High five. Thanks for listening to Good Morning Podcasters, and we'll talk to you again on Friday right here. Good morning, podcasters. Do you know the difference between copyrights, patents, and trademarks? Let's talk about them. I'm Fuzz Martin, and this is Good Morning Podcasters. I host this show thrice weekly with the aim to teach you some things about marketing, social media, public relations, and advertising as they relate to podcasting and content creation. And this week, I want to talk about the differences between copyrights, trademarks, and patents, and whether or not you need one or multiple of them for your show. Now, this is a good time for me to say a few things. I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. Consider it a starting point in your journey to understanding copyrights and trademarks. 2, this episode is very U.S. focused because that's where I am and that's what I know. Copyright law and trademark law vary greatly around the world. And 3, if you're interested in learning more or conducting any of these, do your research, or better yet, consider hiring a copyright, patent, or trademark lawyer to do it for you. So what are the differences between copyrights, trademarks, and patents? Well, copyrights protect original works like art, literature, music, podcasts, in other words, content. Trademarks protect things like names, taglines, logos, in other words, brand. And patents protect things like new inventions, new processes, compositions, so things like putting chemicals together to make a medicine or pharmaceutical, basically any physical or conceptual invention. Do you need any of these for your podcast? Probably not, but maybe? So let's talk about each of them. We'll get patents out of the way first. The only time you would need a patent for a podcast is if you invented something totally new, like some sort of podcast delivery system or a process or something like that. The patent is the hardest and most expensive of the three to come by. Again, patents are for new inventions, processes, compositions. You likely won't have a use for one unless you're making a podcast pill that makes your voice sound great. Now let's talk trademarks. You might have a need for a trademark. You can trademark things like the name of your show, not one episode of your show. You wouldn't want to trademark it. They wouldn't give you a trademark for the name of one episode, but a collection of episodes would constitute a show, and you could trademark the name of the show. In fact, the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office gives this example, and I'm quoting here. Your trademark won't register if it's only used as the title of a single creative work. However, if your trademark is the name or title of a series of creative works, it may register. You need to provide evidence that shows the title is being used for the entire series, not just one creative work in the series. Still quoting. For example, the book title, The Tipping Point, identifies a single book, and the film title, The Manchurian Candidate, identifies a single movie. However, C.S. Lewis's The Chronicles of Narnia books, NPR's All Things Considered radio programs, and the Twilight Saga films are each a series because they identify more than one creative work under that name. End of the quote. One thing with any of these is that you have to be prepared to defend them. That means if you register a trademark and somebody starts using your trademark, you must enforce it, otherwise you risk losing it. And if you're paying $250 to $350 per class to register a trademark, and that's if you file it yourself and don't use a lawyer, then you're throwing away your money and your intellectual property if you don't defend it. So if you're going to get a trademark, you got to defend it. I've registered a number of trademarks in my career. I've also had a few nasty times where I've had to defend a trademark, and it never feels good when you find out that some small business or startup is unknowingly using a name that you have registered in your class, and you have to go and shut them down. But if you feel your trademark's worth filing, that it's worth defending, and then you need to go ahead and make sure you shut down any infringing use. And then finally, there's copyright. So copyright is a funny thing. According to the U.S. government, looking at copyright.gov, quote, your work is under copyright protection the moment it is created and fixed in a tangible form that is perceptible either directly or with the aid of a machine or device, end quote. In other words, once you've created a podcast episode and it's out there for the public, it's technically copyrighted. But there is a process to officially copyright your work. Again, according to copyright.gov, you don't have to register your copyright, but in general, copy registration is voluntary. Copyright exists from the moment your work is created. You'll have to register, however, if you wish to bring a lawsuit for infringement of a U.S. work. So, registering a copyright creates an official public record of your copyright that you can use to defend your copyright if somebody's stealing your stuff. I have personally not registered copyrights on any podcast episodes, so I'm not certain of the cost for it. If you have a large podcast or perhaps a very highly produced podcast, or maybe one that's likely to get stolen, you may consider registering a copyright for each episode or for the collection of episodes, but a lawyer will be able to tell you the best direction and what that is going to cost you. I tried to look it up. There's not really a straight answer that I could find in all of the legal mumbo jumbo. Again, that's what lawyers are for. So let's recap this one more time. A copyright covers your content, a trademark covers things related to your brand, and a patent is for inventions. That'll do it for today's edition of Good Morning Podcasters. If you find this show helpful, please give me a 5-star rating in your podcast player. And then once you've got that finished, please tap the little follow button so that you get the show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday when it comes out, because that's when the show comes out. Okay? Great. I hope you have a wonderful holiday weekend, and I will talk to you Monday right here on Good Morning Podcasters.
Ho, ho, ho.
Good morning, podcasters. Today I'm going to help you improve how you research topics for your show. Welcome to this, the 27th episode of the all-new Good Morning Podcasters. If you're just firing up your old podcatcher for the first time in 2023 and you're like, hey, wasn't Good Morning Podcasters Tanner Campbell's show? Well, yes it was. And then he quit to do Practical Stoicism, and I purchased the GMP IP from him in order to carry on the show. Not necessarily to carry on his legacy. We're different dudes. We've got different personalities, but the premise of giving you a short, frequent show that will help you navigate the world of podcasting without anything remotely motivational or guru-ish is what I intend to accomplish. Who am I? I'm your new host, Fuzz Martin, and 3 times a week, I explore things related to marketing, public relations, social media, and advertising, and talk about how you can incorporate them into your podcast. How do I know all this stuff? I do it for a living, though mostly in non-podcast related situations. On today's episode, I'm going to be discussing Google Trends and how you can use that tool to plan your content for your show, and more specifically, to plan content that people are already searching for. Let's start at the top level. What is Google Trends? By the way, it's always funny to say what is and then have a word that ends in an S. But what is Google Trends? Google Trends is a free tool from Google that allows users to see how often certain search terms are being entered into Google search relative to the total search volume over a given period of time. It gives you data on the popularity of search terms as well as how they've trended over time. It also allows you to compare how popular different search terms are and see how they vary by location. This can be useful for coming up with show topics or what parts of a topic you should be exploring. It can also be very useful in comparing search terms to see how you should word your show titles, descriptions, or even what you're working into your language so that it shows up in your transcriptions. You are transcribing your show, right? You should be. So how can you use Google Trends for your show? First, go to trends.google.com. It's free. Next, enter a search term that's related to your podcast topic. For example, let's say you have a podcast about fire safety. If you type fire safety into Google Trends, it will pull up a bunch of data. First, we see a graph of interest over time. I see in this graph that October is the most searched month for fire safety, which makes sense because that's Fire Safety Month. So if you were considering a specific show topic on fire safety, October would be an optimal month for you to publish that content. Or if your entire show is about fire safety, then you might consider going heavy on content during that month. See, that's how you can use Google Trends to help influence your show's content. If you scroll down further, you can see interest by subregion. Vermont and Alaska really like fire safety in the U.S. Worldwide, United Arab Emirates and the Philippines search for fire safety quite often. Below that, we see related topics and related queries. Related queries has a ton of great information. I see a number of rising topics that would be good for a show about fire safety. Here I see fire safety for kids, South Coast Fire and Safety. I assume that's a specific fire company. 3, what is the purpose of safety data sheets? 4, when is Fire Safety Week? And 5, fire safety coloring sheets. So you could do an episode about each of these topics, except for fire safety coloring sheets, but you could create a branded fire safety coloring sheet for your show and make it available to anyone for free, since it's a high volume search term, and it will get people coming to your show through organic search. If you change the dropdown from rising to top, it changes from the topics that are growing to the ones that are already at the top during your search range. So now in changing that, I can see topics like what kind of fires can safely be put out with water. You could then easily think of adjacent topics like what cannot be put out with water, or how do you put out a chemical fire? You can use the compare tool to check different terms to see which is performing better or which performs better during a given period of time. If you do a pop culture show, you could go to the hamburger menu and click trending searches, which will give you the top searches as of right now. So as I'm recording this, I see the Mega Millions jackpot hit 785 million in time for the first drawing of the year. More than 1 million people have searched about Mega Millions today. Obviously, a lot of people are searching for Pope Benedict since he recently passed away. And a lot of people are talking about college football. In fact, more than 2 million people have searched for college football today. And it doesn't just have to be pop culture. If you do a show on cybersecurity, for instance, there's currently a top trending article about how LastPass customers recently had their data breached. Fun. Oh, and here's another cool thing. When you're exploring a keyword, so if you go back to the explore topics and you type in a keyword, it defaults to web search, but you can click the filters at the top to change that to a news search or even YouTube search. So it will tell you the top trending searches on YouTube or the top trending searches on Google News instead of all of Google. You can also change the date range, choose which categories you want to stick to, like science or travel, etc. And again, you can change the location. So all of those are super helpful for planning your shows because you're going to be making content about what people are already searching for, and therefore hopefully increasing the number of organic searches that find your topic and your show. So if you're stuck trying to find a topic, you want to find better topics, or if you want to improve a topic that you're already working on for your podcast, hop on to trends.google.com and start researching today. It's a lifesaver. Thank you for listening to Good Morning Podcasters. I hope this topic was helpful for you. If not, I'll go back and research something better and give you a better episode. New episodes come out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You can see all the episodes at goodmorningpod.com. That's goodmorningpod.com. If you have a podcaster friend, please recommend Good Morning Podcasters to them as well. And be sure to follow the show by clicking the follow button in your pod player. You know how to do it. You're a podcaster. And thanks in advance. We'll talk to you again on Wednesday, right here on the all-new Good Morning Podcasters. Good morning, podcasters. Time for a heartwarming story about buying social media followers. My name is Fuzz Martin, and this is the all-new Good Morning Podcasters, a 3 times a week show where we discuss marketing, social media, and public relations as those topics relate to podcasting and content creation. But before we get into our story about social media, I want to talk about today's sponsor, podcastpage.io. Having a website for your podcast is vital to assisting with discoverability, having a hub for your fans to find and support your show, having a place to send your calls to action, credibility. There's really so many reasons why you need to have a website for your show. However, I know that a lot of people aren't web savvy in terms of creating a website. And updating a website every episode can be a lot of work. Well, Podcast Page is an easy and intuitive platform to help you create a full website for your podcast without having to know code at all. You can launch your podcast website in literally minutes. Podcast Page automatically pulls in your episodes from your RSS feed, so you have a web page where you can send your listeners. It also is easy to pull in pages from your YouTube channel as well. In addition, Podcast Page has a full blog, guest profile pages, guest intake forms, contact forms, and even a voicemail widget so that your listeners can leave you a message that you can play on your show. Design is easy. They've got a ton of options. They're pre-made templates, and they've got beautiful themes along with a drag-and-drop page builder. And again, no code required. I've been a podcastpage.io customer for 2 years, and I recently switched goodmorningpod.com to Podcast Page from a different source. And we'll talk about that in an upcoming episode. Get started today. Go to podcastpage.io, and you can create your show's website in minutes. That's podcastpage.io. Thanks to Podcast Page for sponsoring Good Morning Podcasters. Let's talk about social media followers. In fact, let's share a story, an allegory, if you will, about a fictional podcaster named Sarah. Once upon a time, Sarah was trying to grow her show's social media presence. She saw that some of her competitors had large followings on Instagram and TikTok, and she wanted to be like them. She wanted to have the same for her show. Sarah came across a website that promised to give her thousands of followers for a small fee. She was tempted by the offer and decided to go for it. She paid the fee and waited for the followers to appear on her account. A few days later, Sarah saw that her follower count had indeed increased by thousands. She was thrilled and couldn't wait to show off her new followers to her friends and listeners. However, Sarah soon realized that the followers she bought were not real people. They were fake accounts created by bots, and they had no interest in her show or her topic. Sarah's social media posts received very few likes and comments from her new followers, and she realized that they were not even providing any value to her show at all. In fact, the low percentage of interaction was actually making her content be seen by fewer people. The algorithm tanked. She also realized that buying followers was against the terms of service for most of the social media platforms, and she could get her account banned if she was caught. Sarah learned her lesson and decided to focus on building a genuine and engaged following through authentic interactions and marketing efforts. She knew that it would take more time and effort, but she was willing to put in the work to build a strong and genuine social media presence for her show. And then she spent an entire weekend blocking the bots that she bought, because there's no easy way to undo the damage if you buy likes or follows. Don't be like Sarah. Do the work. I know it can be tempting to have a quick fix or compete with those who seem to have a bigger following, but it's important that you build a genuine and engaged following through authentic content, through interaction with your fans and followers, while also respecting the terms of service of the social media platforms that you're on. Yes, I know this is hard work, but there is no easy button. That's it. That's today's show. If you have a question for me, reach out, fuzz@goodmorningpod.com. And you can find all the episodes of Good Morning Podcasters at goodmorningpod.com. And while you've got this episode up in your podcast player, please consider clicking the follow button and also leaving me a 5-star review. I'd appreciate it. It's real easy to do. And if you do it, you'll get Good Morning Podcasters in your pod player every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And with that, we'll talk to you on Friday, right here on Good Morning Podcasters. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for checking out this episode of Indie Podcaster. I really do appreciate it. If you're interested in learning more about this podcast, you can go to podcastfather.com. If you're interested in all the different kind of work that I'm doing, you can go to jefftownsend.media. Contact form on there, various other different podcasts and projects that I'm involved in that I think you will enjoy. But again, thank you for supporting me, and make sure you support Indie Drop-In Network like we covered in the beginning. Get your podcast featured on there. Until I see you next time, take care of yourself and keep being you and keep being great.
Jeff Townsend Media. CG, good night.
And the question is, do I stay here? Will you be back? Are you gonna come back? Will you be back? Are you coming back?